Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our learning and sharing event to celebrate the achievements of our United Against Bullying programme. I'm Jess Alborough, Programme Manager here at the Anti-Bullying Alliance, and I'll be leading this afternoon's event. So I'm going to begin by giving you a bit of an overview about what the programme was. I'll be sharing some brilliant case studies from participating schools, and then we'll be hearing from a few guests later on, including Professor Peter Smith from Goldsmiths University and staff members from some of our United Against Bullying schools who will be sharing their thoughts on the programme through a panel. And there'll be a little bit of time at the end for your questions as well if you want to ask any. So let me start this afternoon by explaining what was the United Against Bullying programme. Well, to give you an overview of what the programme involved, this was our whole school anti-bullying programme funded by the Department for Education, which was provided for free to schools in England. It ran from 2021 until March 2024, and the aim of the programme was to establish United Against Bullying schools that evidence their work to reduce bullying and improve the well-being of all pupils, with a particular focus on at-risk groups such as pupils with SEND, those receiving free school meals, and other groups such as care experienced young people or young carers. As unfortunately, we know that these groups are more likely to experience bullying than their peers. All participating schools had access to a variety of certified CPD training on anti-bullying, both self-guided courses and live sessions, some of which were provided online and some in person. Our online hub included a 360-degree audit, an action plan tool, which enabled schools to audit their anti-bullying practice against a whole school approach and give them an action plan to take forward. Schools could also make use of our online pupil questionnaire, which had been developed with input from Anna Freud Centre and Goldsmiths University, and asked questions to determine bullying levels, well-being levels, and pupils' feelings about school. And this online questionnaire would also analyse results for schools so that they could see figures about their bullying levels and if there were groups of pupils more at risk of bullying. And then finally, our online hub held a wealth of resources, tools and case studies to support schools in implementing their action plans across the year. So as I mentioned, the programme ran over 3 years from 2021 until 2024, and schools could take part across one academic year, although some schools took part over 2 or all 3 years. And each of those years, schools would work through 3 steps of the programme, which you can see on the screen here. So step 1 was to plan, and this meant completing a baseline audit and baseline pupil questionnaire to assess bullying and wellbeing levels and to identify the areas of anti-bullying practice that needed development. From this audit, schools created their action plan for step 2, do. And this was the really important part where they would implement changes using our training, tools and resources to help them to do so. And then finally, they'd come to step 3, which was review. And this was a chance to repeat the audit, collect pupil questionnaire responses a second time to analyse the impact of these changes, celebrate achievements, and also identify areas that were still developing or needed further work as they move forward on their anti-bullying journey. And at the end of each year of the programme, schools would then send us their submissions with all of their audit details, which Peter's team at Goldsmiths would review to decide on either bronze, silver or gold United Against Bullying award, depending on their efforts and achievements against our award criteria. So for schools who did take part but didn't receive an award, they were also given a certificate of participation too. So I've given you a brief overview of what the programme involved, and I'm really excited to play you this video now that rounds up and celebrates the achievements of the programme.
Anti-bullying is important because everyone deserves to feel safe in school.
In November 2021, we launched United Against Bullying, a 3-year whole school anti-bullying programme funded by the Department for Education. Our goal: reduce bullying and improve well-being, especially for pupils with special educational needs, disabilities or receiving free school meals. All schools had access to CPD staff training, a whole school audit, a tailored action plan and tools to help them succeed. 844 schools completed the programme and 746 earned bronze, silver or gold United Against Bullying awards. In just 3 years, we've delivered anti-bullying CPD training to over 46,000 participants through e-learning and live online sessions. 96% rated our live training good or excellent.
Being able to have access to the training materials and resources tailored to address bullying has allowed myself, staff and students to enhance their knowledge skills in tackling bullying effectively.
We've seen a significant boost in confidence among those trained to prevent and respond to bullying, including those most at risk. Schools reported reduced bullying, improved behaviour, and better staff understanding and confidence in how to prevent and respond to bullying. Many schools also saw better attendance and attainment.
The audit itself was absolutely amazing. It was so easy to follow. It gave really clear and precise questions, answers, ideas.
At the start of the programme, schools audited their anti-bullying practice against 46 indicators in 7 categories. By the end, a follow-up audit showed great progress for many participating schools. Significant improvements were particularly seen in having an up-to-date anti-bullying policy, supporting pupils to be actively involved in anti-bullying, using a range of interventions to respond to bullying, and providing regular anti-bullying training for staff. We didn't just rely on feedback from school staff. Our online pupil questionnaire, taken at the beginning and end of each year, collected responses from hundreds of thousands of pupils. While every school who completed United Against Bullying saw great results, silver and gold awarded schools saw bullying significantly reduce. And this was particularly the case for pupils with special educational needs and disabilities, and those receiving free school meals. Not only did bullying reduce, but pupils reported improved well-being and a stronger sense of safety and belonging at school.
And it's not just anti-bullying that I think it's supported, I think it's mental health as well.
We are incredibly proud of the achievements made through United Against Bullying with over 700 schools. This success demonstrates that through dedicated training, whole school effort, shared learning and listening to young people's voices, we can reduce bullying and its impact on children's well-being, education and life outcomes. We hope one day we will be able to expand this programme nationwide to end the devastating impact of childhood bullying for all children and young people. Together, we can unite against bullying.
So as you can imagine, we're absolutely thrilled with those results and so proud of the work that our hundreds of United Against Bullying schools put in. In fact, we're so proud that we wanted to share just a little taster of some of the brilliant things that our awarded schools achieved. So as part of the final audit in step 3 of the programme, our schools were asked to upload evidence and examples of work undertaken as part of the programme. And we also asked for some case studies to illustrate this. So over the 3 years, we have collected hundreds of fantastic case studies from schools, and that's so valuable to us and the other schools that we work with. And I just wanted to pick out just a couple of wonderful examples, including a great video case study as well that I'll share just in a minute. But to begin with, I just wanted to pick out, like I said, a couple of examples of the sort of impactful changes and actions that United Against Bullying schools have been implementing over the past 3 years as part of this programme. So firstly, one United Against Bullying school told us about how they saw an opportunity to help students who didn't feel they were able to attend school due to the levels of bullying they were experiencing, and wanted to provide support and restorative actions to allow them to feel safe and valued to come back into school. So they updated policies, codes were changed within absence processes in school. So if bullying was flagged as the reason for absence, because that was something that they made a change and they started doing that they weren't doing before, the attendance officer then sent this to the anti-bullying lead, head of year and anti-bullying coordinator within the school, and contact was made with home, an open communication on what had occurred, and a process was going to be set in motion towards an end goal of that student returning to school. And they saw that this made a positive impact throughout the school and found that simply changing that absence policy to identify students being bullied allowed for more in-depth investigations and structure being put in place to accommodate and support all of their students to feel safe enough to be in school, which is fantastic. Another example of a United Against Bullying school putting in place some fantastic work is having an anti-bullying lead, really important. And they wanted to do this to ensure consistency of action in all matters of conflict resolution and anti-bullying practice. So to promote this, they created a parent and carer anti-bullying support booklet, the role of anti-bullying lead being clearly highlighted to them. They had whole staff anti-bullying training, and encouraged phase leaders and tutors to speak with that lead about reported cases of bullying. And this work meant that their staff had a dedicated staff member to go to for support, guidance, and to ensure consistency across the school on how bullying was being dealt with and responded to. As well as pupils and their parents and carers too, feeling supported and knowing that their reports were being taken seriously. As part of their case study submitted to us, they also highlighted the importance of having a really supportive senior leadership team who are really supportive and flexible as well, so that this work can be as effective as possible. So to give an example that they gave within this case study is that the senior leadership team doing all they can to ensure that staff have the required time and space for meetings and phone calls with parents, group meetings with pupils, that kind of thing. And you can see on the right of the screen some direct quotes from school case studies. And actually, I'd like to now hear from one of our United Against Bullying schools themselves through a really lovely case study video that we created earlier this year. So I'm going to share that now.
So Herschel Grammar School is a selective school. It's based in Slough. We educate students aged 11 to 18, therefore we have a sixth form as well. I felt that signing up this programme would give us good structure with how we can tackle bullying within school. So we decided to take part in this programme as I took on my role as assistant head teacher with a pastoral lead 3 years ago, and anti-bullying falls within my remit. My LSAs, our learning support assistants, started a social club where they were able to, encourage these pupils who may, struggle with social situations and settings and, developing friendships to attend this club. It'll be a safe space. We had our SEND prefects also help be involved and run it, but then we also opened it out to all students.
So we set the club up. It's a safe space, everybody's welcome, they bring their packed lunch, we have lots of different card games, board games, we make sure that nobody is on their own. So if you come on your own, we will introduce you to a friend, either in your year group or another. Sometimes I find it easier, they actually like to talk to the older children. The older children have been through school and have got lots of experience and they can help them.
Debate club. There's also like musical ones like karaoke club, there's the orchestra after school, there's also diversity clubs, so there's loads of clubs, so I think there's something for everyone.
Karaoke club or like drama club, it's the way you can speak out like that really improves your confidence, I feel.
Some people find it a bit more difficult to talk to teachers, so they've also got people who are closer to your age. So we've got peer mentor drop-in sessions every week, and we've also got the anti-bullying page on our school website that has all the information you basically need to report bullying.
Once you know that there are other people with other interests who aren't in your year group or aren't in your little bubble, I don't know, it's just like a subconscious thing between people that if you know that somebody else also has, if you want like an external life, they have their own things going on, I think it would prevent bullying because you're gaining insight into other people's own little bubbles, and that probably builds a connection.
I get called out, I get asked to help out with these stuff, which kind of improves my confidence. It makes me feel wanted, makes me feel needed as well, because that's one thing that people might not admit, but if you felt needed, you feel that you're your own person, you're valuable.
Students seem more comfortable to open up. It's normalising talking, actually. And it's not just anti-bullying that I think it's supported, I think it's mental health as well.
If you have no confidence and you feel like, and people are being really rude to you, then you could almost feel like that's justified because you might have quite low self-esteem and think, oh, these things are true. But if you have a higher self-esteem and higher confidence, then you're less likely to think those things are true, and you're less likely to stand there and take it, so you're more likely to go and report it. So I think those two aspects are like really key linked together.
In drama, students get an opportunity to explore their emotions and their relationships as characters within a safe space. Very often that opportunity opens up the door for students to approach members of staff. It's not that we're necessarily having to do lots of extra new projects or tasks. It's just about very simple tweaks to things that we already do. Some clever assemblies that make the students feel involved, highlighting continuously where they can go for help.
You need to show them care, and they give you care and respect back. And in the social club, that's what we do. I just think listen to your students. For them to have that confidence to say what's happened is just amazing.
So you've seen and heard about some of the fantastic things that happened within schools, but now let's dive into what the data told us about the impact of these actions. So I'm really thrilled to introduce our speaker for the next section of this afternoon, Professor Peter Smith of Goldsmiths University, who worked with Suzanne Robinson and Catherine Colbert to evaluate this programme, and whose full report will be available to read on our website, as well as a shorter summary report. Peter, I'm going to pass over to you to take us through the highlights of what you and your team found in your evaluation.
Thank you very much, Jess. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Great. Thank you. So what we're going to be doing is giving some of the highlights from an independent evaluation based on the pupil questionnaire data. That covers children's own reports on whether they've been victimised or whether they've taken part in bullying others, including cyberbullying. It also covers school experience. That's kind of school belonging, how comfortable they feel in school with teachers and peer group. And also well-being, just how good they feel themselves. Do they feel calm? Do they sometimes feel angry? And things like that. And we're looking at time trends. I'll show you some data on that. Also differences by gender, by special educational needs status, free school meal status, and school type, secondary, primary, infant schools. We've also got the school audit data to look at, and the feedback from the participants of the CPD training has been mentioned. And also, as was mentioned, we provide these certificates, gold, silver, bronze, or certificate of participation to schools. The findings I'll be showing you are mainly from gold and silver schools. Next slide. So first of all, the school audit, all schools reported considerable improvement in all areas of anti-bullying practices and policies. And the CPD training was very positively received as well. And you've already had some data on that, but here's a bit more coming in the next slide. So this is one of the school audit measures, set of measures, responding and intervention. And as you can see, there's 7 different items, and schools report both at baseline, that's the red bar, before the started, and then the purple line is the final. They're all showing improvements. And all the school audit measures, so quite substantial improvements. Now, of course, this is coming from the schools themselves, so it's what we might call soft data. And we also want what we might call hard data coming from the pupils. Do the pupils themselves experience anything better? So next slide. So what we learnt from the pupil report questionnaire, firstly, secondary schools saw the highest levels of bullying and infant schools saw the lowest. There is an age effect. That's rather commonly found, actually. We also found that pupils with special educational needs or disability and those in receipt of free school meals, they're more likely to report being bullied or bullying others. Again, unfortunately, not a surprising finding. That's very commonly found. And finally, male pupils more likely to report bullying others than females. Not much gender difference in being bullied, but in terms of bullying others, it's more males. But not entirely, of course. Next slide. Now, what we found was that the schools taking part in the programme, on the whole, levels of bullying reduced between the baseline and the final. And I'll show you a bit of data on that in a moment. And on the whole, it was particularly the case for pupils with special educational needs and in receipt of free school meals. It did depend on the particular measure we're looking at and so forth, but that was the general finding. And that, of course, was very gratifying, given that was one of the aims of the United Against Bullying project, to help these pupils in particular. Next slide. Now, here's some data on the prevalence of bullying others. Now, it's only from two schools, two primary schools, but these are the two schools that participated across all three phases of the project. As Jess mentioned, there's 3 years of this project now, and each has time 1 and time 2, a sort of beginning and end, as it were, for that year. And we've got all these phases shown here. But unfortunately, only 2 primary schools actually took part in all 3 phases. But the strength of this data is it is the same schools that we're looking at over these 6 time points. What it's showing is 2 kinds of figures: ever bullying others and frequent bullying others. So ever bullying, even if you just did it once over the last term, frequent would be it's happening perhaps 2 or 3 times a week or more. So obviously that's much less than the ever bullying. Ever bullying is a pretty lenient criterion, really, if you've just done something like that once in the term. So that's why these figures around 30% are rather high, around about 5% for frequent bullying others, which is much less, of course. Now, what you see here is, for the ever bullying others, is a pretty consistent decline over those 3 phases, 3 years or 6 time points. And for frequent bullying too, on the whole, the trend is downward, although it's not quite so consistent. And the next slide shows cyberbullying others. And again, we've got the difference between ever cyberbullying, or ever being a cyber victim, rather, sorry, or frequently being a cyber victim. And again, they're going down. So it's quite encouraging. Now, I say it's encouraging because of the consistent downward trend. Of course, bullying hasn't gone away. It's a tough problem to tackle, as anyone in school knows, really. And if we look at other bullying intervention programs in other countries, there have been a number. For example, there's been the Olveus program in Norway and Sweden. There's the Kiva program in Finland. Those have been going for a number of years. They're pretty well funded. They get rather similar sort of findings, I would say. They get reductions from year to year, but kind of modest ones, significant but modest ones. The same sort of order of magnitude that we're saying here. So I'd say that UAB is taking its place alongside the Olveus program and the Kiva program as having some significant success. And that success builds on from year to year, which is very encouraging. Next slide. Now, besides bullying and victim experiences, we also measured school experience and well-being. And they were more positive for pupils who didn't report any bullying. In fact, I think it's good if we go to the next slide, or might be the one after. Let's just go to the next one after, because I'll explain this for you. So this is looking at results for gold schools generally and silver schools generally in the project in this final year of the project. So TM1 is time 1, TM2 is time 2 over this last year. Now, school experience, that's how well you're getting on with teachers and other pupils in the school. So a higher score is good. So firstly, you can see that the scores for gold schools are slightly higher than the results for silver schools, and that's not surprising. Gold Schools putting that much more effort into the work. Secondly, you can see on the whole, mostly there's slight increases in school experience. There's an increase for those never bullying others. There's an increase for those who only occasionally bully others. But interestingly, there's a decrease for those frequently bullying others. And that's consistent for gold schools and silver schools. So on the whole, although for most pupils school experience is improving, it's not the case for those frequently bullying others. And that's an interesting finding and perhaps not totally surprising, because probably these children who are taking part in frequently bullying others, they're being challenged more about their behaviour. Perhaps they were getting away with it before, but now that bullying is a priority in the school, maybe they're being challenged more, and maybe that makes them a bit uncomfortable, which is understandable. Let's look at the next slide. Yeah, so school experience scores improved for all pupils overall, particularly for pupils with SEND and those receiving SEM. Pupil well-being increased overall, but less so for pupils who reported frequently bullying others. So next slide. No, the one before. Oop. Next one. Next one. That's it, that one there. This is now, I think we've had that one, haven't we? School experience. Yeah, well, maybe that's really reinforcing the finding we discussed before, that on the whole, school experience is getting better, but not for those who are frequently involved in bullying others. Okay, next slide. So just in summary, there are encouraging findings regarding the implementation of the programme. In general, there are reductions in victimisation and bullying, and there are improvements in school experience and pupil well-being. 3 recommended focus areas going forward. Online bullying, there were decreases for online bullying too, but of course it's a moving target as technology changes, as new websites come along, as the popularity of particular websites changes. It's important to keep pace with this and to keep pace with the online training too. Further support for secondary and other schools. On the whole, levels of bullying are higher in secondary schools than they are in primary or infant schools. So clearly they need further support. And then I pointed out the issue of working with pupils who frequently bully others. Their well-being and school experience doesn't increase in the way that it does for other pupils. In fact, it slightly decreases, perhaps because they're being challenged more. So clearly they need some special attention as well. I think that's the end of the slides.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter, for breaking that down and going through those findings. Like you said, we're really particularly proud of the impact of the programme had for those pupils who are more at risk. And like I said, the full report will be available on our website, as well as a summary report of the key findings as well. So do look out for that after today's event. In just a second, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because it is now time to hear from some of our lovely United Against Bullying schools themselves who are here with us this afternoon. This next section will involve a bit of a panel, really, a discussion, and hopefully we'll have time at the end as well for a few questions that you might have that you'd like to ask these schools. So I'll just stop sharing my screen and let's meet our schools. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let our schools introduce themselves instead of me doing that. So my first question really for the panel then is tell us about you, about your school, your role, and why you joined the programme. Can I go to Fiona and Louise first?
You can, thank you very much. We are from St Nicholas Primary Academy in Boston, Lincolnshire, and we make the designated safeguarding team, SEND team, a little bit of everything. Our school is in the top 5 most deprived schools in the country. We have a small school of 210 children, but 20 different languages are spoken here, with none being kind of a bigger language than others. So it creates a really interesting context to try and ensure there's inclusivity, cohesion, unity, and that's why we wanted to begin this package of work, really. We are built on the basis that we believe everybody has a light that they should be able to shine, and ensuring that those characteristics are protected that mean everyone's safe and welcome and valued. So we wanted to make that official by completing this project.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Andrew, what about you?
Hi there. I'm Andrew Innes from City of Norwich School. We're a large comprehensive school of 1,700 students ranging from 11 to 18. We took 2 years to do this because I wasn't happy at the end of the first year with quite where we were. I wanted to get a bit further on than we were. Why did we join the programme? Because we're, you can see from the picture behind me, a very nice, lovely, leafy school in the middle of a leafy suburb of Norwich. And the general consensus was that bullying didn't happen here. But actually, we knew that it did. Students knew that it did. We wanted to find some way of validating what we were saying, and then giving a good platform and some clear ideas on how to improve the situation and how to get rid of the bullying that we did have. And the programme has been amazing in helping us to do that, and has really identified some areas we've really had to put a lot of work into.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Andrew. And Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica from Hamforth Grange Primary School, and I'm the deputy head. We took part in the programme because again, we did 2 years, like Andrew said, and after the first year, we signed up because it was after COVID, and we'd noticed a lot with our pupils that there was a lot of peer conflict, especially at lunchtimes and playtimes. And some of that was going into bullying, but also some of it was actually just the children weren't very well equipped at kind of dealing with disagreements and actually building those social communication skills. So we did a lot of work in the first year, and that really helped us. But then from doing the questionnaires at the end of that first year, we realised that actually some of our children felt not fully included, especially our free school meals children. And so we did it again for a second year and had some fantastic results.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jessica. And Sarah?
Hi, I work in a large three-form-entry inner city primary school. We serve about 600 children, and it's a very diverse community. We've got about 40% who are on pupil premium. I am the deputy head and the designated safeguarding lead, and we decided to do the programme because we felt that we wanted to make our systems around how we deal with bullying clearer and more robust. And also we felt that this work would really help to improve student wellbeing as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah. And finally, Natalie. Oh, you're still on mute, Natalie.
Me? Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
So hi, I'm Natalie. I work in a school in Sandbach. I'm the online safety lead and anti-bullying lead. Work in a girls' school, so there's over 1,400. And we've been part of the programme for 2 years, but I only took over in September. So we wanted to continue the work that we had been doing and obviously continue with the foundations that were set. I feel like we joined the programme this year in particular to try and tackle, cyberbullying in particular. In the girls' school, we find that there's a high percentage that a lot of the bullying is happening within the social media sort of apps that they're using, the groups, and they're also not proactive with reporting it. They don't feel like they like to go to trusted adults. So the programme's allowed us to kind of review that, put in place staff training for how they might tackle, issues that are happening, not necessarily inside a school, but at home, and then bringing parents on board with that of how to monitor situations within like WhatsApp groups, TikTok, Snapchat, and how we as professionals can try and diffuse those situations in school from happening. So the programme's been brilliant for resources for us to help us with CPD, with staff training, trying to give all the students a voice and being proactive, which I'll talk about later on in some of my questions. But we found it really, really useful, the anti-bullying programme. So thank you.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. And welcome to all of you, and thank you again so much for coming along this afternoon rather. Okay, my first question then for this afternoon's panel is, what is one of the most impactful things that you did or changed or actioned as part of the programme? If I go to Sarah first for an answer.
Yeah, so ours was really around, one of the most impactful things we did was setting out a really clear definition of what bullying is and making sure that we really over communicated this. So things that we did around this was obviously assemblies, PSHE lessons where they were really exploring the definition, but treating these, I guess, like we would with any other subject, you know, that it needs retrieval practice, it needs that constant reminding, so that everybody's talking about the same thing when we're talking about bullying. But having posters, like we made child-friendly posters, kind of separate versions for Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, and having those up around the school, but also talking through regularly with the children examples of bullying and non-examples of bullying as well, so that really, and with parents, so that really everybody had a clear kind of definition of what bullying was, so that people could better recognise it and report it. And around that, one of the things we also found was changing how people reported it, so that staff could report potential bullying, because often people don't like to be set in labelling things, and we found that then meant that even small things were being recorded, so we were much more able to spot patterns and to deal with things effectively.
That's brilliant. I mean, those of you who have taken part in the programme know how much we at the Anti-Bullying Alliance talk about the importance of definition, so it's great to see the impact that work had in your school, Sarah. What about you, Natalie?
So I'm going to talk about a couple of things, but I think the biggest thing, we have a huge team of anti-bullying ambassadors that are from the students from year 9 up into year 11. So we have over 90, and they've been working really hard with myself over the year to deliver assemblies to different year groups. We focus those assemblies on our hotspots of current bullying issues, and then they will deliver it on a topic. So we've delivered things like on online cyberbullying, bullying towards SEN students. They've done it with LGBTQ. We've also looked at doing peer mentoring, which has been brilliant. So from those sessions, if there's been reoccurring incidents, they have peer-to-peer sessions, and that could be with the bullying person themselves or the target, and that's reviewed over, like, I think 3 weeks. So they have them every single week, and then we look at, after 3 weeks, what's the next step for them to take. They found that really, really comforting the students, because it's not an actual member of staff, it's with one of their peers that are leading that. And I think that's where trust starts to build for them to be able to then take forward and actually feel comfortable in reporting. The ambassadors have also provided staff training, which has been amazing. Again, the staff have been able to see it from the students' point of view, and they've used the anti-bullying programme to be able to, again, use definitions that you use through the programme, using the correct terminology and the language. They've also then trained other students. So I think having a team of students in the school, and we've been lucky to have so many, representing, you know, anti-bullying and how to promote it and how to stop being showing that behaviour, has been really effective. The second thing from that is that we've had one-to-one intervention with our local community police officer. So in particular, of the online bullying incidents we've had, the peer mentors have done sessions with them, and then the police officers come in with the peer mentors, and he's done kind of intervention one-to-one with students to try and look at their behaviour, why it's happening, what to do to keep themselves safe. That's been really effective. And then the final thing, our anti-bullying ambassadors came up with this idea, because our barrier has been reporting the incidents to a trusted adult. So they wanted to create a duty team, which we've just started this summer term. So they are part of the anti-bullying ambassadors, are on duty with staff. So they do break lunchtime, specifically in Key Stage 3, because that's where a lot of incidents have happened. And we've found that a lot of year 7 and 8s have found that really comforting to go to an anti-bullying ambassador at break and lunch to talk to them and report incidents. and then that comes to the pastoral team or us, and it's been a really effective programme in terms of having a lot of anti-bullying ambassadors doing different things across the school. Okay.
Oh, that sounds great, Natalie. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful that you've got so many anti-bullying ambassadors and young people that your other pupils can go to report or talk about that.
Sorry, just turn that off. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. And then Fiona and Louise, I think you had something you wanted to share as well.
We did. Being in a primary school, one of our main sort of focuses was ensuring children understood what bullying was, and also the different kinds of bullying that we had. So we focused a lot of our work on protected characteristics and ensuring the children understood exactly what they were and why they should be protected, how they could alert people to having their own sort of issues, and also how they could help people who they've witnessed. So a lot of ours was around that communication, being able to identify when something isn't okay and shouting about it and saying it's not okay.
Fantastic. So kind of upskilling those young people to recognise it and to know that it's not, it's not fair, it's not right, and they have, the opportunity to tell someone about it, and they should.
Absolutely. And the protected characteristics, we've got displays all over the school. We've made a very visual wheel so that any of our children, whether they can read English, they are English, they're not English, they have no communication, can identify just using some very simple symbols as well. So that was a very big sort of thing for us, wasn't it, to ensure it's all inclusive.
Thank you so much, Louise and Fiona. I'm going to move on to my second question, which is, what would you say are the barriers for schools trying to implement a whole school approach to anti-bullying? Jessica, if I go to you first, what would you say are the barriers?
I think a sort of biggest barrier for us, like with a lot of things in schools, was time that we needed to dedicate to it. And we found lots of different ways to be able to make sure that we were kind of using our time as efficiently as possible. So we knew that it was something we needed to address to ensure that we had a consistent approach from kind of senior leadership to all the way down to support staff, and also with the children themselves. So again, like other schools have said, we implemented anti-bullying ambassadors with the children, had an anti-bullying lead so that they could dedicate the most amount of time to it, but then also did kind of training little and often with other members of staff. So in our kind of weekly staff meetings, we spent the kind of first 5 minutes looking at different scenarios to discuss how we would respond to different incidents, whether we would class them as bullying or not, and how different situations might vary. As well as then obviously there was some great videos and stuff from your programme where you could kind of visit them little and often, and different people could be allocated to different videos. We also got governors and parents involved, and the children themselves sort of led a lot on it as well to save time for staff too. So the children held assemblies, they wrote a child-friendly anti-bullying policy which was then sent out to all parents, put on our website. And the children then really took ownership of it. They'd have weekly meetings with the lead, and then come up with, right, what do we need to do next? So that there was just a focus on it throughout the whole year. I think quite often when you're trying to implement a whole school policy, you sort of spend a lot of time on it at the beginning and then it trails off. But by making sure that we were kind of doing it regularly all the time, it meant that it was really in the forefront of everyone's minds.
That's great. Thanks, Jessica. I think that's such a huge one, isn't it? That time and capacity to implement these changes, but it looks like you found ways around that, and obviously still managed to make it really impactful. So thank you. Well, Andrew, have you got anything to add to that? I'm sure capacity across the board is a big one.
I kind of split it into three things, really. One of our biggest barriers was our staff, because we have a culture where everybody understands safeguarding and everybody's on it and everybody knows how it works. But that link between safeguarding and bullying staff weren't making, and we're kind of seeing it as a behaviour that perhaps is a bit insignificant, and they weren't really understanding the bigger impact of it. And a really good example came from Student Voice when they said, I was being bullied in the classroom, and the teacher jumped on the behaviour and told the child to stop kind of talking when they were talking, but they weren't listening to what was being said. So they weren't dealing with the impact of the bullying, they were just dealing with the fact that this person was talking. And that really struck me, actually, and became a real kind of key point of our thinking. around the school around bullying that we notice it, but we don't notice it. So trying to get staff to kind of look a little bit deeper than just what's going on in front of them was interesting, and that was a big shift from staff. In terms of our students, our big barrier was them telling us. We often have parents saying, my child's being bullied, and it was the first we've heard of it. So when we spoke to them and did a lot of work on it, the obvious one is the fear of making it worse. If I tell you and you say something, it will just get worse. I don't want to be a snitch. I don't want to be a grass. Or you won't do anything about it. Nobody's ever done anything before. So that, again, was a real sea change for us to start giving the students confidence that actually we are going to do something about it and we will deal with it. And going back to students and saying, look, can we tell other students about this? So we won't name you, obviously, but we're going to put case studies out. And the third kind of side of the triangle here is parents. And the huge expectation from parents. And it was quite interesting listening to people saying about the definition of bullying, because parents calling in saying, my child's being bullied, I want you to do something about it. Well, they're not being bullied, actually. They've just fallen out with their friend. And yes, it was online, but it's not bullying. And really going through that definition of bullying, because we had parents who just wanted to go straight to the top of the policy. And you need to get rid of this child forever, and because they're bullying my daughter. And no, they're not. So managing the expectation of parents, getting them to kind of work with their children and building resilience, so that when it is apparent it is genuine bullying, we can step in and put in what we need to put in. And at a point that doesn't really fit that question, but one of the reasons we went for the 2-year program is because we did our audit and our student voice survey, which was an incredible thing for us. That's what changed our school. And when we did it the second time, it was worse. And we were really worried about this, but actually it was because we'd raised awareness. So people were actually noticing things happening and reporting them more. So we had to kind of take a step back and wait and say, okay, well, once that's embedded, let's look at it again the third time we do it. And that's when we saw that real uptick. So my advice to anybody is don't be downheartened if at first it looks like it's getting much, much worse. It just means people are noticing what's happening.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That's such a good point. And one of the things that we always talk about when we, delivering training or talking with schools is you're absolutely right. Don't be surprised if you see initially a kind of increase in reported bullying, because you're building that awareness and confidence in young people to actually do that. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. That was really, really great to hear. Okay, so I'm aware of time. I'm going to move us on to our very last question and start with Sarah. What would your one piece of advice be for schools looking to improve their approach to anti-bullying?
I think it would be around really getting a good understanding of people's voice and thinking carefully about how you collect the data around that. I think what I learned a lot from the programme was how carefully kind of the online questionnaire had been structured to find out about behaviours and well-being, without ever explicitly mentioning bullying, and also looking at those different groups and where children were struggling with well-being the most in school was really, really insightful for us. But then also kind of moving on from that, being able to present some of those findings back to children and kind of invite their feedback on, well, where did they want to go with this and what did they think would help. So, for example, one of the things that children said at our schools that they felt that, you can always report bullying because there were always other children around. So they wanted things like My Voice boxes in classrooms and just for wider kind of worries or struggling to make friends, being able to tell teachers that without having to actually say it, in a classroom environment. But letting the children kind of lead a lot of these changes and talk to us about what they wanted, say, the roles of mental health champions to be, and these sorts of things.
Yeah, I think that's so important, that pupil voice. And like you said, it's exactly that, letting them lead. It's so, so important. So I think I'd agree with you there, Sarah. What about Natalie? Have you got anything to add? One piece of advice?
Well, similar to what other people have been saying, I think student voice is, one of the most effective things you can use. Questionnaires, making sure, you're asking the correct questions, the right questions that you can get good feedback from to know how to obviously then improve. I think relaying what you're actually doing all the time, like Andrew said, I think one of the biggest barriers can be that everyone thinks it's a quick fix, especially parents. Like, you get an incident reported to you and then they think, why is it not being sorted straight away? Well, actually, it's quite a long process to try and go through and intervene with bullying to try and reduce it. And I think relaying that consistently to students, to staff as well, and parents, that you are doing things and it's not a quick fix. I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do as a school. But I do think student voice and having the students have a say in what they think that could be done to be, improve bullying is really important. And sometimes asking the staff as well, like Andrew said, some of the staff don't understand what bullying is sometimes, or when they witness it, maybe ask staff what do you think they could see to improve bullying, or what they could have to help them to be able to deal with things within the classroom or in their form setting, and how to get that support.
Yeah, opening those lines of communication is important, isn't it? Thanks, Natalie. What about Jessica? Have you got anything to add about one piece of advice for schools wanting to improve their approach?
I suppose my biggest piece of advice is, when you're thinking about bullying, don't just think about the response. We did a lot of work on actually prevention of bullying in the first place, and sort of saw that by kind of talking to the children, putting more an emphasis on them being able to be themselves, it not only stopped the bullying, but also really improved their mental health and their sort of well-being in themselves. And also, safety-wise, thinking about cyberbullying, online safety. We had workshops talking about how to sort of resolve conflict, and all that builds up to developing a really lovely community in your school. So it isn't just about, someone's being bullied, let's respond to that. It's actually, how do we stop that from happening in the first place?
Yeah, that's such a good point. Thank you, Jessica, for sharing that. Okay, so I can see that there's already a couple of questions that have been put into the Q&A. And I can see, thank you, Natalie, you've already answered the question about anti-bullying ambassadors. Did you want to talk any more and give any more detail about what that looks like within your school?
So the anti-bullying ambassadors, there'll be other schools that have it as well. The Diana Award does a lot of training with them, and you can go through and collect badges, so you can do things specifically for well-being, inclusive, so you look at all different groups, community awards, so where you're not just doing anti-bullying work within your own school setting, but you're going out into the wider community and supporting. And then within that program, you have the peer mentors, which help to support students who are being bullied or are bullying within the school
and that's
setting.
What you were using.
Yeah. So it's kind of, and then we use the anti-bullying program to support us with materials, resources, to ensure that we're using the correct language, that we're delivering assemblies with the right content and things like that. Okay. Hopefully that's answered your question.
Thanks, Natalie. And if anyone has any others, pop them in. I can see there's one from Caroline in the Q&A that asks, how can schools apply for a future round of this? At the moment, we don't have funding to continue this programme, but we are very much hoping that won't be the case in the future, and that we will have funding for future to continue this programme. But that's what we need to look out for and keep striving for ourselves at Anti-Bullying Alliance. But we certainly will be asking for that. So at the moment, there isn't an opportunity to continue, unfortunately, with this programme, but please do keep an eye out on the ABA website for when hopefully that will change in the future. Any other questions, Miri, in the chat that I haven't seen? I can see a question asking about plans to extend, any plans to extend into Northern Ireland. At the moment, I don't know of any plans to extend in Northern Ireland, but at the Anti-Bullying Alliance, we do have our Northern Ireland group. So if you wanted to get more information on that, again, do have a look at our website, because we'll be updating on any sort of movement on anti-bullying in Northern Ireland. We've also got one saying, it was wonderful to hear the perspectives of teachers leading the programme. Were you able to identify which aspects of the programme had the greatest measurable impact? Anyone want to come in and answer that one? Louise, I can see you.
Yeah, I think that the greatest measurable impact we had was the confidence in the children to be able to speak out and to say, I've seen this, or I felt this, or my friends told me this and it doesn't feel right. And to be able to have that confidence to recognise what's happening, and also for our staff to be able to feel confident to work with not only the little person or people who were being bullied, but also the person who was doing the bullying, to find out where that was coming from. We found that very, very impactful, because that's what's made such a massive difference. Because now some of our ambassadors, as we've called them, our little people in year 6, are able to start asking people, so why did you do that? How are you feeling? And using that peer support, because that talking is really huge, and the resources that we were sort of given through the Anti-Bullying Alliance programme was just immense. It was fantastic to be able to use that and know that you are saying the right thing to support.
Louise, can I jump in on you there? We've on our leaflet, you can't see the back of it because it's blue, but it says on the back of it, the whole page is about how we support bullies. And the bullying is not just it's not just about supporting the victim, but actually what is the bully, why is it happening? And we've got in big letters, you can't see it, if I put it in front of me, there we go. If you are a bully and you need help stopping, just ask. So it's about actually saying, if you're a bully and you know you're bullying, then we can help you with that as well. It's not just about you're a bully, so you're bad.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I think also, thinking about what we heard from Peter earlier as well, I think the importance of supporting those who bully others is really vital, isn't it? Definitely. Did anyone else have anything else they wanted to add to that? We've got a question that I'd love to hear answers on around, was there anything you tried that didn't work as well as you thought it would?
Am I okay to answer this one?
Go ahead.
Thanks. So one thing we tried and we had from last year was, it's called our Stamp It Out email. So it's it's where they can email if they don't want to speak face to face to an adult or an ambassador. And we promote this and we say we hand out cards, everything, but it's just not, I've had one email this year, it's just not worked. So the ambassadors and myself and staff, we've tried to come up with new ideas. So in September, what we've done, and we'll see if it works or not, is on EduLink we've made a caption to be able to report bullying. So they can then do it at home with the parents as well if they want to, which will take them to a form which they can fill in, and then that gets directly sent to myself or to the pastoral team, and it's going to be on their desktop as well, on the computers. So we're hoping that might kind of increase the amount of reports of bullying, because the email just hasn't worked and it's been around for 2 years. But nobody uses it. So we've done a lot of promotion for it, but it just doesn't get used.
That's
so
interesting.
Hopefully this will work.
Jessica, did you have something you wanted to share? I saw you coming.
It wasn't anything that we'd done on the programme, because that worked really well, but I think in the past we'd had a huge focus just on Anti-Bullying Week, and then not really thought about how we were going to follow that on. Whereas now we have we still do Anti-Bullying Week, but it is slightly less focused, but then ensure that we are doing more things throughout the year that link to that. So I suppose it was just to say that it's kind of, Anti-Bullying Week is obviously an opportunity to address things, but it isn't the be all and end all.
And it shouldn't just end at that week. Absolutely. Thank you, Jessica. We're really keen to share that message of, Anti-Bullying Week isn't just for Anti-Bullying Week. You're absolutely right. Okay, so a massive thank you to our panel for that really, really valuable discussion. It's almost my turn to say a final few words, but before I do, I just wanted to share one last video with you, again focusing on the voices of our schools and what they had to say about the programme. So hopefully Miri from my team is going to share that video for us.
Thank you. Just
The United Against Bullying programme was easy to follow. There was easy access to training. Staff could access training in their own time if they chose it.
An easy to navigate site with really clear instructions. It's great for busy teachers. Great customer service. Whenever I have emailed in, I get a really quick answer.
Audit itself was absolutely amazing. It was so easy to follow. It gave really clear and precise questions, answers, ideas of what you needed to look for to really be able to identify what you were doing well and what maybe needed a little bit of tweaking.
A great survey, which is where the results are analysed for you. I found that as a person who is not a data person, I found that very easy to set up. An easy to navigate site.
The United Against Bullying programme has facilitated our anti-bullying work by providing structured framework.
Fantastic resources that are really relatable to children and to staff.
They are understanding what bullying is, because previously it was a word that was used for pretty much anything really. But now our children at our school actually genuinely understand what it is, and they will stand up for people and they'll say that's not right, which is huge really.
The programme has empowered our students to take an active role in combating bullying.
I think that the programme has given us the chance to add rigour to the work that we do and a sort of gravitas, because we know that we have the backing of a national programme. We tell the children that.
The impact of being involved, oh my goodness, it's immeasurable. The difference in the children, staff, parents.
100% recommend the Anti-Bullying Alliance programme, because there are so many things there that help schools manage their policies.
The programme has served as a catalyst for us to refine existing practices and implement new approaches to tackling bullying effectively.
Well, that's a final message for me, just to say we are so incredibly proud of what this programme has achieved, but this work is certainly not done. There's still lots to do to end the devastating impact of childhood bullying for all children and young people. We really hope that funding for our programme, like I said, will continue in the future. You've seen from everything covered today the positive impact that this programme can have on schools and their pupils. So we don't want to lose this work, and we will be doing all we can to continue supporting schools, but we really do need that funding to continue to do so. You can, of course, support us donating to the Anti-Bullying Alliance and or becoming a member. So please do visit our website on more information on how to do those things. And don't forget, you will be able to read our summary impact report as well as the full Goldsmiths report, both on our website following this event. So do visit the United Against Bullying page if you would like to access that. But to bring us to a close, I just want to say another big thank you to our guests, Peter Smith and all our lovely United Against Bullying schools. Thank you for your time, and thank you all for coming along to watch this afternoon. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your week. Thanks all.